Continues to move across the state. We might see a few more power outages here and there, but again, we're not looking at the damage that we saw with Hurricane Ian.
And because the rain has been relatively steady, even though heavy at times, the ground is able to kind of take that in, and hopefully we're only seeing just a little bit of swollen rivers. Right. And I know a lot of these questions are coming into our WFLA Now Stream Center.
Yeah, and we've been on the Stream Center all morning long. We actually went up there in between our newscasts to sit down with JB, but now we have Chief Meteorologist Jeff Baradelli there sitting with JB, and you guys have been answering questions minute by minute and telling people exactly what's going on county by county.
And we're getting great questions, Amanda, from our audience across multiple social media platforms. Welcome in to the WFLA Now Stream Center with Max Defender 8 Chief Meteorologist Jeff Baradelli. Let's get to some of the questions, Jeff, because they are some great ones coming in. Let's go to the WFLA YouTube page. Hello to our YouTube Live audience. Sydney Muller wants to know, is the eye wall going to come near Newport Richey, Jeff?
Well, you know, it's not much of an eye wall anymore. Of course, it was an eye wall. It is really weakened and the whole structure is degrading. But basically, the worst of the conditions are in Newport Richey right now and will be for about the next hour. And then after that, better weather will be moving your way, and we're going to put Nicole in the rearview mirror. One thing I would mention, though, along the coast, on the Nature Coast, 5 o'clock tonight, around that time, we have a high tide, and we could see as much as 2 to 4 feet of storm surge flooding. It's not going to come in really strong and fast. Nevertheless, there could be some overwash and some minor flooding, so just be aware of that.
And our streaming audience is not just in the Tampa Bay area. They're across Florida, including on the Panhandle. So we've got a lot of questions coming in to some other sections of the southeastern United States. Lil Patty on the WFLA YouTube page, hashtag HeyJB. Could this storm go into the Gulf and re-strengthen, Jeff?
It's a great question. It does not look like that's going to happen. First of all, if it does enter the Gulf, it would be for about a minute. Second of all, notice the structure is just not there anymore.
Yeah.
So even if it went over the Gulf, it would need a lot of time to first regain its structure, then take advantage of the warm Gulf waters, which, by the way, aren't as warm as they were before. So that will be inconsequential. This storm is going to be spiraling downward over the next 24 hours.
We want Nicole to get out of here. Our YouTube commenters, Facebook commenters saying exactly the same thing. But if you want to join us in the WFLA Now Stream Center, you can do so right now by scanning the QR code here on your screen. Of course, that will take you to WFLAnow.com. We are live across multiple platforms, Facebook and YouTube, Jeff.
And we were live all night last night, and you told me we were the #1 stream on YouTube. Is that correct?
We were. People were finding us because we're able to answer questions for people and talk with them directly at home.
So this is where you can always find us during breaking weather.
All right, we'll send it back over to our team in the WFLA Now studio. Guys?
Thank you. And right now, more than 300,000 people across the state are still without power. 45,000 of those outages are here in the Tampa Bay area. 8 on your side, Xavier Harris is live at Tropicana Field, where Duke Energy is standing by, ready to help. Hi, Xavier.
Hey, good morning, Stacy. That's right. All these guys, or the crews rather, you see behind me here, they came all the way from North Carolina, and I'm told they've been here since 5 o'clock this morning, and they're just patiently waiting for these conditions to get a little bit better so they can head out and help restore power. Now, moments ago, we did see a few crew members leaving out, so that could kind of insinuate some parts or some areas. They are getting a little bit better, but I'm told their main goal this morning is to make sure everyone's power is restored quickly and safely.
With wind gusts like this, imagine one of those buckets up in the air. It's not going to be safe for anyone.
That's why crew members are asking customers who lost power for patience.
Just know that we are coming for you. Even if the truck isn't at your house yet, they might be a couple blocks up the road working on an outage that they need to restore first before they can restore yours.
Bill Norton with Duke Energy says during significant weather events, Duke Energy often bring in linemen and additional support personnel to assist in restoration work in the hardest hit areas.
We've got 5,000 boots on the ground ready to attack this storm as soon as the weather conditions allow.
Norton says for those who lost power, it's important that you remember to report it so crews will know.
You can go to DukeEnergyUpdates.com. That's a website. Of course, if your power's out, you're going to have to do that on your phone. The other thing you can do is text out, the word out, to 57801. And
in the meantime, Norton says with the heavy winds and continuous rainfall, it's unclear how long folks will be without power. But he has tips for those who are in the dark.
Keep your refrigerator closed. A freezer that stays closed, if it's full, that food will stay good for 24 hours.
Again, crews are asking everyone to remain patient, and they say they are trying to get everyone's power restored as soon as possible. This morning, we're live in St. Petersburg. I'm Xavier Harris, 8 on your side.
All right, Xavier, thank you. And some people in Daytona Beach, meantime, are out of their homes today because they were told to evacuate as Nicole approached. Carrie Sanders now with that story.
Early this morning, Nicole roaring ashore as a hurricane, lashing Florida's already battered East Coast. Waves crashing onto the boardwalk in Daytona Beach, in Vero Beach, wind blowing up transformers. Now a tropical storm, Nicole crawling its way through Florida and later will head up the East Coast. Early winds and waves combined to wash away significant portions of the beach in Volusia County. Buildings left precariously close to the water's edge.
There is an imminent danger of building collapse.
Why? The storm surge from Hurricane Ian 6 weeks ago battered the sand dunes here, the last line of defense between the ocean and the coast.
Absent those sand dunes, which are a natural protection, you can see the beach erosion. The seawall has already given way and it's given out. The next high tide will take out even more here. And as I take you over, see here, that building up there? Well, as you look down, you can see the erosion has already begun to undermine the foundation.
Engineers say last-ditch efforts to shore up weakened areas will likely be little match for the power of the ocean, supercharged by Nicole.
Look over your shoulder right now. Look at this.
It's sickening. It's sickening. I'm in disbelief.
Nicole Hubener owns a beach rental business. This is what it usually looks like here.
Nicole is the nail in the coffin for Daytona Beach Shores. Ian came in and did all this damage, and now Nicole is just putting us away.
Along more than 200 miles of the Atlantic coast, Florida emergency managers ordered mandatory evacuations and open shelters, but not everyone was willing to leave.
It is late in the year. We're Floridians, though. We're going to make it through it, and we'll be here tomorrow.
And I hope everybody stays safe.
Well, we'll be right back as we're continuing to track the tropical storm.
Yeah, the entire Bay Area still under a tropical storm warning right now. Live look here at downtown Tampa. Just a nasty, yucky day out there.
Stay indoors.
Yeah, if you can, that's for sure. We're back with the latest on Tropical Storm Nicole here in just a moment.
You're watching News Channel 8, awarded the 2021 Suncoast Regional Emmy for News Excellence.
Enough lift and energy and motion, and we have a lot of that. Helicity, rotation can potentially produce a tornado. So bottom line, tornado warning in effect for Camden County, but we're talking about really the northern half of Camden County. We're talking about now moving away from Kings Bay, but toward the Woodbine area. For that matter, for those of you in Glenn County thinking about heading south on I-95 within the next 30 minutes, why don't you delay that about 30 minutes or so? Let's let this band get on through, and it's going to continue to work off to the north and to the northwest. So we're following this individual cell racing to the west and to the northwest, but the band of activity will continue spreading north and northwestward. This is the same area, though, that has already produced a wind gust, I believe, to about 55 miles per hour in the Brunswick area. Again, radar indicated. We don't necessarily have verification that there's damage on the ground, but at the very least, we do know that these cells have been producing some winds gusting to 55, 60, maybe 65 miles per hour. That's enough to bring down even some big water oaks. We've seen that. Several areas around northeastern Florida, when these bands came through, have already brought down some 50, 60-foot water oak trees. And if that were to come down on you while you're driving or your home, of course, that would cause problems. So at the very least, think of this as a particularly strong cell, but potentially could be producing a tornado. Robert has it zoomed in there on what looks like a signature of some rotation right about there. Again, heading to the west and northwest at about 50 to 55 miles per hour. Tornado warning going to stay in effect until 12:15. And here's a few other locations between the estuary and I-95 where the thunderstorm, I say thunderstorm, there might not even be lightning, where think of it as a very strong downpour continues to race off to the west. And this is all within that band. We've seen at least, what, Robert, 3 or 4 tornado warnings today so far?
This is number 4, yeah.
Okay, and we may see more, folks. Remember, the tornado watch, at least the one that's been in effect since 6 this morning, goes until 1 p.m. and includes those of you in, there it is, thank you, Robert. So the tornado watch remains in effect for Duval and Nassau County, but Robert and I were talking, and we think that threat is coming to an end, as I know it gets a little confusing here. So you see the cells racing from east to west, but they're actually radiating out north and northwestward. So for those of you that are thinking, wow, that band's heading toward me, yes, heading toward you folks in Glenn County, and then toward Brantley and Pierce and Ware, and through Charlton County now, and then extends down toward Nicole. So we're still watching some of these cells over especially northern and northwestern Baker County and then Columbia County. But by far the strongest signature of rotation, so potentially a tornado, is the cell over Camden County. There will be more coming ashore. And so of all of the area, I would say, especially those of you in Glenn County, keep a close watch on additional cells that may be coming your way. I'm not saying there's a guarantee you're going to have a tornado warning, but if there is a place where it's most likely that there will be more winds gusting to over 55 miles per hour, it's going to be over the northern half of Camden and then Glenn County. This is an interesting cell too here. This is basically that same complex that came through northern Duval and western Nassau and right over Callahan. So we're going to watch this complex as well. For now, it's primarily dealing with the Okefenokee, but that more than likely will continue to work to the west. What's happening is Robert is going around to the radar, trying to find any kind of angle any kind of way to look at the velocities to try to figure out where the rotation is, both because we want to know what's going on, but also because we're trying to show you visually what's going on as well. Again, this is the signature for the tornado warning. Again, moving away from Kings Bay and away from the estuary, and then deeper into more of central and then even northwestern Camden County. Certainly Woodbine jumps out at you, and in other areas as we head toward I-95. Forest view, probably going to move about in this direction, right about like this. But quickly. Go ahead, Robert.
I'll put this just up on the screen so we can kind of,
there you go.
Right about there, you're saying. So, yeah, puts back Woodbine at about 12:04. So, and also I have this movement moving at about 55 miles per hour. That's what we have this. And, you know, it would just take a look at the winds real quick, because this is what we're talking about here. Look at the wind gust right now at St. Simons Island. So out there in Camden County, just east of where we have this, winds are gusting near the coast at 33 miles per hour. Of course, once we're looking at the clouds and those bands wrapping and around that off towards the north, you just kind of extrapolate and see how fast these clouds are moving. That's how fast that tornado is moving if we do have one formed up here. Once again, it is radar indicated, but you know, that's why we have all this fancy technology. We have that very nice radar out here at our airport. It looks out, and this is what we call Doppler radar. Basically, it's looking out towards this, and it sees where the winds, if they're coming or going. And here it's indicating that the wind is actually going away from the radar right there and coming right there. What does that mean? We have this, what we call a mesocyclone, or rotation in the cloud. Now, it looks like this just updated, Tim, as I was talking here. I've seen the polygon kind of shift a little bit and move off there towards the west. So it looks like they just basically are extending this. And yeah, they're continuing the tornado warning still until 12:15 p.m. It's moving off towards west. It is currently located about 8 miles east of Woodbine, moving west at about 35 miles per hour. So they actually kind of slowed it down here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this off the screen, and we're just going to remap this out here for you, give you guys the most accurate information that I possibly can, because right now I had this moving at about 55 miles per hour. But with those gusts near about 35 miles per hour near the coast, that does make sense for that forward motion. So that brings it into Woodbine instead. About 5 minutes later, about 12:12. Regardless, you're under a tornado warning, guys. So right now, you need to be taking that shelter. Just like with the last one we were talking about out towards Callahan, you know, we also have well, it's a lot of kind of swamps back here near the, and marshes near the coast. But once we get further inland out towards 95, it's wooded areas. This is still moving at a decent pace, 30 to 40 miles per hour. That means it's going to be also wrapped in some rainfall here. We've seen that indicated on radar. In fact, let's put this right over here. Indicated on radar. I mean, you got some pretty heavy precipitation and maybe even a little bit of a, dare I say, Tim, what do you think? A little bit of a hook trying to?
Yeah, it looks like it certainly doesn't look like it's weakening yet.
Yeah, I mean, this is still a noticeable couplet, and that's what we call this when you have the wind coming and going. Call it a couplet, that rotation in here being indicated on radar. So cruising off there towards the west, expected to move into Woodbine here in about the next 5 to 10 minutes. But actually, let's just put this on the screen one more time and give you guys the best information I possibly can here. Here we go. That is moving at 35 miles per hour right there, off there, passing by Woodbine at 12:12 p.m. Remember, the warning goes until 12:15 out here in Camden County. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, I'm not in Camden. Why are we focusing on there? Well, that's the most immediate threat at this time, especially when you get these little mesovortices that are quickly moving and rain wrapped. But also in the bigger picture, we still have those onshore winds coming onshore, which near the coast, 50-mile-per-hour wind gust still being reported in some areas down here towards the south. Not to mention, we're continuing to see high tide. Even downtown Jacksonville, we do have the water levels rising out here. So that's another problem. But right now, definitely focusing on that tornado warning as this pushes off here towards the west. So just kind of, let's take another closer look here. There you go, moving off there towards Woodbine at about, and Halifax at 12:11, 12:12.
I'm going to hop in for a second, Robert. And so here is the big picture again of the tropical storm. This is the band that is producing this shower that could be producing a tornado. Again, the tornado warning for northern Camden County. But I want to point that out because, yes, we're going to stay hyper-focused on this, but there will be other cells, bands of showers that will produce some wind gusts to 55 miles per hour and might produce the concern for other tornadoes as well. This is, can you see it? This is sort of the hook. Almost has a hook type appearance that Robert was talking about. And so it paints where we think there could be some rotation and then the motion off to the west and to the northwest. So I wanted to broaden out the picture to show you, again, this whole band of activity will continue to spread to the northwest. Individual cells racing from the east toward the west. As Robert mentioned, maybe these aren't moving quite as quickly as we saw earlier, maybe more like 35 to 40 miles per hour, but still pretty quickly. The other point I'm trying to make is, and it doesn't mean you're going to have a tornado warning, but at least know that a downpour with winds gusting to over 50 miles per hour will be heading in toward Brantley County, will be working in toward Charlton County, and then within probably less than an hour for those of you in Pierce and northern portions of Ware County. So those of you up around Waycross, you have more bands on the way. The winds will be increasing. And I'm not saying you're going to have a tornado warning, but some of the strong winds that we've been talking about for other areas, those are heading your way as well. And because if you picture Nicole working to the west and to the northwest, until it makes the turn now, it could be a while before this band actually lifts out of Camden and Glenn County. So for those of you in Camden and Glenn County, we're watching with interest these downpours that are still offshore and then coming ashore. So you could have several cells within this one band that could come ashore and produce some winds gusting to 50 or 55 miles per hour. Remember, all of this energy, where winds over the ocean at 35 to 50, maybe still some gusts to 60, that is still pouring onshore.
Tim, can I show you the velocity
Yes.
real quick here, because we're just looking at this. National Weather Service just pointed this out, and I found it here on the radar. So we have a circulation there, but look just down there east of Fernandina. They're pointing out possible rotation out there as well. They're not a warning on it, but that's what you were just talking about this. We got those other cells which could kick up water spouts and come on shore. So they're also, just to confirm what you were just mentioning there, those other cells still just off the Atlantic coastline here.
Yeah, so what Robert is also talking about, folks, is that as long as Nicole continues to move northwestward versus north, it could be that those of you in Camden and Glenn and then Charlton, Pierce, and Brantley County could be dealing with several of these cells coming ashore. Not all of them necessarily producing tornado warnings or the need for it, but certainly supports the idea that you might have more than just one downpour that could produce winds gusting to 50 or 55 miles per hour. There will be several that will continue to form offshore and then come ashore, especially for Camden and Glenn. So there's a broader look. So again, we could call this, we could almost say 1, 2, 3, maybe some more offshore. And all of these are forming over the warm waters offshore, coming ashore, and then rotating down toward Nicole. So Nicole, no doubt about it, on the move, and will continue to move, but pretty quickly off to the northwest. So you can almost think of it as it's drawing energy, as Nicole, remember, on the Gulf Coast now, is almost drawing energy from the warmer waters and then toward the land areas. And this also supports the idea where, for those of us in Duval, Clay, St. John's, Flagler, and Putnam County, we've seen our highest winds more than likely, but doesn't mean now winds are going to go calm. There will still be, again, so here it is. Here's Nicole, the center, or the circulation center, just about over Clearwater there north of Tampa. And as it moves along this way, it's going to continue to then pull energy toward it. So although technically you can think of it, well, Nicole is moving away from us, and it is, but because of the large circulation with Nicole, we'll still be dealing with this activity. Now, it's not all negative. There is drier air coming up from the south and the southeast, and that will help inhibit, notice just a real lack of even clouds right here. These are what we call warm-topped showers here. They're not extending far into the atmosphere. Dry air is not the friend to a tropical cyclone. It's a friend to us. And the more of this dry air that rotates in will also further weaken the system and will help us. But it may seem counterintuitive. Dry air right on the edge of tropical air actually then enhances or helps form more storms where there is still tropical air. Remember, evaporation causes cooling. So the drier air, and again, hang with me for a second, but it may seem like it would go the other way, but the drier air actually would cause some evaporation where there's a lot of moisture, which actually causes cooling over the warmer waters, which then enhance the storms where there's moisture, if that makes sense at all. So what Robert has zoomed in on here, so the dry air is trying to come up, the energy's racing in toward Nicole, there's plenty of moisture here, and you're really looking at the formation zone. So if you were out here on the boat, so to speak, right about down here, you might even see some sun. And then you'd rapidly see cumulus clouds, and those cumulus clouds would become towering cumulus clouds. Remember, generally speaking, the higher the clouds are, the stormier they are. In fact, see this lightning here? We know that that cloud has built up to at least 25 or 30,000 feet because you can't have lightning without ice. So these are building up in a vertical way. And so what you're looking at is the formation of all of these cells. And by this point, it probably doesn't take a meteorologist to say, well, if the winds are out of the east and to the southeast, then what's developing here is going to come ashore. So these will still be coming ashore in Duval and Nassau, but the boundary of the drier air coming in against the moist air really looks like it's going to continue to focus over Camden and Glenn County. So again, if you've just joined us, the tornado warning remains in effect for Camden County, northern Camden County. In Kingsland and the St. Mary's area, and for that matter, Kings Bay, you're going to have more downpours, but the concern for this particular downpour producing a tornado is now farther off to the west. So this is where the rotation formed. If there's any rotation now, it is right around the Woodbine area. So for those of you in Woodbine, hang on for about another, if you just need to get on the road, hang on for another 5 or 10 minutes, and whatever this storm has to offer, it will be west of you and heading away from you, heading instead toward Brantley and Pierce and Ware counties. Now, the good news is, as far as I can tell, Robert, we haven't had any indications of damage from this tornado, correct?
No, there hasn't been any confirmation of a funnel cloud or anything like that. Plus, this is just, I don't know how else to say it, Tim, but this is just a hot mess. On the velocity. We got a couple couplets in here, but we're not seeing anything that clear. Nothing looks at me, nothing stands out to me, and it screams, whoa, there it is. Maybe right here, just towards the east of Woodbine, but that's it very well could be there as well. Big thing, let's actually just take a look. Take a look at the at reflectivity. There's not much of a hook echo in here, but it's not to say that there's not a rotation. Could be right about in there, just towards the north of a Woodbine. But I have not seen any confirmation, and it does look like this has been canceled. Okay, good news. Tornado warning has expired, or excuse me, it will expire here in Camden County, but it is going to be ending out here in about 5 minutes, and that's the good news. This is continuing to weaken and fall apart here. So still, as Tim has been stressing, we're continuing to watch these cells back here towards the east form up. Look at all those convective clouds pushing on shore. We got the tornado watch that is still in place in these areas. So yeah, we still got that warning in place. It is going to be expiring out here. So that means the National Weather Service is looking at this and they're going basically what I just said. It's a hot mess. It's not terribly organized, but we still have the ingredients in play for this. So if you are in this tornado warning, still sit tight. Let's wait for it to expire. Be safe. And you know what? Overall, if you don't got to be out here on the roadways, stay inside. I mean, you don't need a tornado warning to cause problems. I'll just show you really quick here. I mean, we had that truck overturned on the Dames Point Bridge. It's currently closed. Here's a photo from one of our weather watchers who was out there going over the bridge. That was from, we had wind gusts reported out there at Mayport just around this time, nearing 50 miles per hour. It takes no mathematician here or meteorologist or whatever to move up extrapolate where those winds were at Mayport, run them up the St. Johns River, and maybe this truck was moving over right about that same time, and you got those winds blowing that over out there. So you just want to stay inside if you can. Be safe, guys. Be smart about this and hunker down. I know in some areas it may just feel like a breeze, but look at these wind reports right now. Still tropical storm strength gust being reported here across the First Coast at this time. Taking a look at the latest track on our storm system, though. This is at 10 o'clock. It is out there towards clear water passing out towards around the Big Bend area. Center of circulations in that area, I mean, sea surface temperatures are not terribly warm there. This is starting to get dry air wrapping in around it. So what does that mean? Don't expect this to re-intensify by any means over the Gulf of Mexico as it kicks off there towards north. So our big topic right now is that onshore flow and that thunderstorm threat here as those bands start to push on through. I mentioned there's still that tornado warning. It is going to expire here at 12:15. So 4 minutes, but really just not organized at this time. And just want me to continue to keep you guys posted here. Tim, you got anything?
I do. Why don't we expand the picture?
All right.
Again, we're going to keep a close watch on that cell, folks. But it does look like, as Robert mentioned.
Tim's your mics. Yeah.
Yes, it does. It does look like, as Robert mentioned, that that cell will be able to get through, and hopefully we won't see any development there. But as Robert also mentioned, what we're going to focus on here is this is the cell and reason for the tornado warning, just about ready to be out as far as that is concerned. But notice there's several other bands coming ashore that at the very least, even if they don't produce tornadoes, will continue to produce gusts over 50 to 55 miles per hour. We're saying Camden County and Glenn, but because these are heading toward the northwest, can't rule out the fact for those of you in Amelia and Fernandina that you could get another band as well. And for that matter, it's why we will continue to have gusts occasionally up to over 40 miles per hour, even in Duval and St. Johns and Clay County. It's one of the reasons why we're under a tropical storm warning. Remember, tropical storm conditions are 39 miles per hour or more. So we'd expect to still see some gusts of 40 to 45. So although we've talked about, and I think we're seeing verification, that especially for those of us from Duval, Clay, St. John's, Flagler, and Putnam, we've seen our steadiest, heaviest rains. We've seen our highest tide. That is at least along the coastal counties. We're still watching for those of you on the St. Johns River as we get down toward or continue to work southward. But as far as the water pouring in, we've seen our highest tide. But we're still going to have some gusty winds, tropical storm force winds. There still will occasionally be some downpours. The continuation of gusts near 50 to 55, though, will be for those of you over Camden and Glenn. And if anything, winds will be increasing for those of you over Ware County. Again, the cells continue to come ashore, and at the very least, as Robert mentioned, if you don't have to be driving in Camden and Glenn County, and for that matter for the rest of the area, why not leave it alone for a couple of hours until we start to see the winds subside? And they're only going to do that slowly. And notice plenty of other activity farther off to the east and the southeast. We watch the lightning, not only, of course, because lightning is dangerous, but that tends to highlight, if you don't know anything else, where the strongest storms are. Now, these storms that are forming off to our east will actually wrap up along the band, and these, if I'm in Savannah, I'm focused on these thunderstorms because these are going to wrap up probably north of Glenn County up toward the Savannah area. These bands, and now we're seeing some thunderstorms, I think these will easily catch those of you in Glenn and might even catch those of you in Nassau County. Remember, this is all, it's almost like Nicole here is twirling around with a rope. And you got to be careful how far out that rope extends. In fact, it's one of the reasons why tropical storm warnings extend all the way up through the Carolinas. Another way to think about it, remember the nor'easter. Remember, Nicole was within a nor'easter that at one point, if we call the nor'easter winds up to 40 miles per hour with winds out of the northeast, it was about 500 miles from Nicole and then northward. And so it's going to take a while for all of that to gradually unwind. And until it unwinds, we'll continue to keep a close watch on these cells and, of course, the tides. But for now, we're going to wrap it up and hear from Mayor Curry.
That's right. Let's listen in. Mayor Curry speaking about Tropical Storm Nicole.
Departments throughout Duval County. Duval County remains under a state of emergency at this time. We're also under a tropical storm warning, storm surge warning, flood watch, and a tornado watch. Nicole made landfall south of Duval County in the early morning hours as a Category 1 hurricane. She has since weakened to a tropical storm but continues to impact our area. If you are watching Nicole's track, it is well to the west of Jacksonville and the beaches. However, our biggest threat remains storm surge and tidal flooding along our beaches and the St. Johns River, as well as the potential for tornadoes throughout the area. High tide tonight and tomorrow morning will present the biggest risk for flooding at the beaches and along the St. Johns River. If you live in Zone A or B, please stay aware and be prepared. We currently have public works crews in the flood-prone areas like McCoy's Creek, Hogan's Creek, and San Marco, where there's some localized flooding. There's also flooding along Ken Knight Drive, and like we did during Hurricane Ian, we have partnered with the Jacksonville Transportation Authority to provide a direct shuttle to the Legend Center shelter for any of those residents in need. We will continue to closely watch these areas through tonight's high tides. For the beaches, that's around 9 p.m., and inland high tide is 11 p.m. 2 shelters opened at 8 a.m. today, the Legend Center and Landmark Middle School. Both are available for those with special needs, the special medical needs, the general population, and both are pet-friendly. We still do not expect evacuations, but we want to make sure shelters are available for those who may be in need. I said it yesterday and I'll say it again. Please stay out of the water and off of the beaches. The surf is breaching the dunes and there's no beach to stand on. Once again this morning I watched local news and saw people were in the ocean. These are terrible conditions. You're risking the lives of yourself and those that may have to come rescue you. So stay out of the water. I'd also like to ask all citizens to stay off of the roads until the storm passes. There are down power lines in areas as well as trees. There have been multiple accidents today, several that required extrications, one that shut down the Dames Point in both directions, and with these conditions, there's potential for more. Do not go out unless you have until the storm until the storm passes and these tidal flooding effects have receded. In conclusion, remember that if you have questions or need to report a non-emergency incident in the city, call 630-CITY. If you have an emergency, call 911. Lines are open with extra operators on 630-CITY and will be available to handle potential heavy call volume. With that, I invite Chief Ellis Burns to talk about Jacksonville Sheriff's Office efforts, followed by Jay Stowe from JEA.
Thank you, Mayor Curry. Good afternoon. I'm Ellis Burns, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. So I couldn't say any better than Mayor Curry did. Please stay off the roads. We're working about 20 crashes as of 11:30. As the mayor said, some requiring extrications. Most of these are most likely going to be weather related. So I'm asking people to please stay off the roads. It's inclement weather. We're hoping this is going to pass the next few hours. We'll continue to watch the storm track and work with the National Weather Service on that, but there's no sense in being on the roads if you don't have to be, so please don't. We're still fully staffed, extra staff actually right now, and we're deploying strike teams to try to shut down intersections where there's standing water at that's impassable. Outside of that, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. JEA crews have been out all night restoring power. The storm, as it still passes through, there will continue to be outages, and the fluctuation of the numbers of outages will be moving around a little bit. A few minutes ago, we were down to about 6,500 outages right now. It has been as high as 25,000. All the crews are out responding. There's some areas where it is difficult to get to because of trees and flooding. But we will continue to work around the clock till we can get those back on. Our water system is holding up well, no overflows and no broken pipes, so we should be good there. And we have partnership with the city and all the other agencies to keep things moving as quickly as we can. Thank you.